Hello there. Is the citizen protest in Ireland against state-enforced immigration the long-awaited spark to a full European pushback? The Irish government sparked unrest in Ireland as it pursued its anti-Western, WEF-style globalist agenda against the ordinary Irish citizen, and the citizens have been pushed too far. And even after a few days of militarised police overreaction, the citizenry is still standing firm, and the lead is being taken by the residents in the small community of Newton Mount Kennedy in Wicklow. They held their own large march against mass immigration yesterday. And on Monday the 6th of May, there is due to be a huge march in Dublin, maybe a monster march. But it is Irish government policy to let as many newcomers into the country as possible, while the Irish birth rate continues to decline further below the natural replacement rate. So, despite that falling birth rate, the Irish population has increased by over 14% in the last decade or so. Compare that to the EU 27 member state average increase of just 1.7% in population growth. The Irish government does seem extremely keen on increasing their population by anything other than an increased number of Irish children. And they seem to have put in place policy magnets that draw new people in. You'd almost think there was a plan at work here, wouldn't you? So why is the Irish establishment so upset over a few more arrivals from the UK? Because they've been found out by their long-suffering people who've now realised the downsides, housing and cost of living for a start. Not only that, their now very strong support for the pro-Palestine side would also attract many newcomers from a certain demographic too. There did seem to be a lot of Irish tricolours on the London marches, after all. No wonder the ordinary Irish people are up in arms, especially when a video emerges of young Irish girls being targeted in Ireland, as well as a GB News story about some potential weapon-wielding newcomers using kiddies as human shields against the police on the beaches of France. The trouble is, that approach has so far worked for the Channel crossers, because the French police and navy, as well as our own border force and RNLI, facilitate their progress in order to prevent confrontation that might lead to violence, only to then dump all that potential violence on UK beaches. What if, in future, these people don't get the money and housing they demand? Talking to GB News, the Small Boats Operational Command's Deputy Director of International Operations, Carol Higginbottom, painted a chilling picture of violent people doing their utmost to get into the UK, some possibly for onward travel to the Republic of Ireland. It's growing, it's getting worse, and we need to continue to keep plugging away at stopping these organised criminal gangs that are putting people at risk, she said. This is not good. But the focus is always on those at risk in the boats. How about those at risk here in the UK, once some of these people that we know nothing about are roaming our streets? My view is we need to immediately stop them and return them. Then the incentive to use France as a staging post would disappear. And how many of those people have been assisted by the likes of Care for Calais? Why do we allow them to effectively aid and abet the violence? And from what I've seen over the years, this more violent approach is nothing new. It's just that they are now forced to admit that it's happening. Now, it's obvious that the Irish government wants this mass migration, or it wouldn't be happening. The exact same situation as here in the UK, and in the European Union as a whole. But when the population starts to get animated about it, the political deflections start. And right now a big deflection is the illegal immigration spat between the UK and the Republic of Ireland. And as far as I can see, the UK Republic of Ireland open border is being used by newcomers as a soft route to help them choose where they want to go, UK or EU or Republic of Ireland. But the numbers that newly arrive are driven by legal migration, and that hugely outweighs illegal migration, where both the UK and Ireland are concerned. But it suits both London and Dublin to divert attention away from the visa route and onto the dinghy route. So now we have this political battle where the UK can't return the dinghy people back to France, but Dublin says many of them are now getting into Northern Ireland and then crossing the open North-South Irish border into the Republic of Ireland. And Dublin wants to send them back to the UK. But the UK is saying no, not until France takes them all back. And all the while the boats and planes full of visa-carrying newcomers quietly continues unabated. Anyway, as part of the Irish plan, their Justice Minister Helen McEntee has declared that I'll have emergency legislation at Cabinet this week to make sure that we can effectively return people to the UK, and that's why I'll be meeting the Home Secretary to raise these issues on Monday. But the Home Secretary James Cleverly has claimed a diary clash, so she is meeting the Northern Ireland Secretary Chris Heaton-Harris instead. Now, if the UK can't send these people back into France, an EU member state, then how does McEntee think she can force us to take them back? Especially as the Irish courts have ruled that the UK is no longer a safe third country to send them to because they risk being sent to Rwanda. And they'll only walk back in again anyway. And a senior UK government source is quoted by The Times as saying, "We won't accept any asylum returns from the EU via Ireland until the EU accepts that we can send them back to France." You could imagine what would happen if we did stupidly agree to Irish demands. Every single asylum seeker on the French beaches would immediately be picked up and ferried to Ireland, and then bussed straight into the UK. But the delicious bit in all of this is the border between North and South Ireland. Dublin moved heaven and earth and painted pictures of a return to sectarian violence if any vestige of a physical border was retained. "We must protect the Belfast Agreement," they screeched. But now they have to acknowledge there is a border there. But they can't use it. They can't put border checks there to prevent people entering the Republic from Northern Ireland, because they are the ones that in their furtherance of their aim of a united Ireland made the claim that any hint of a border would imperil the Belfast Agreement and so risk starting another cycle of Irish violence. Strange, isn't it, that it's always the threat or risk of violence that wins the day? Whether it be on the French beaches, in the dinghies, at the borders, or on those marches, the authorities will always cede their authority to those who might cause them a real problem. As ever, it's easier to remove the peaceful issue, whatever it might be, to stop it inflaming the potentially violent doing as they please. Now, as I've said in a previous video, Dublin will no doubt attempt to weaponise the Belfast Agreement once again and get a willing Joe Biden to ride to their rescue, claiming that the only way to protect peace and the Brexit Trade and Cooperation Agreement is for the UK to accept all migrants from Ireland back into the UK, but be unable to send them back to France. Let's hope the current Tory and future Labour Party governments stand firm against this. I would rather like to see the Irish government stew in their own juice. An Irish government that insisted on an open border across Ireland to help the EU punish Brexit UK while enhancing the cause for a unified Ireland, and in the process dismissing all other sensible options as leading to a return to sectarianism. Had they not done this, well, who knows? The Irish Brexit red line is beginning to bite them back.